La verdad no siempre es fácil, pero es lo que encontrarás en Noticias Generación News.
Estamos ya de regreso a la última parte del programa, aquí las Noticias Generación News. Quiero que veamos este tráiler. Le voy a poner este tráiler que tengo aquí de un documental que ya está en YouTube de hace un tiempito atrás, ¿no? Y le voy a poner un pedacito del documental también, un testimonio de una de las personas, para que usted vea cómo se siembra esa semilla satánica para destruir la identidad de una persona. Cómo el enemigo de las almas es tan astuto para poder sembrar una semilla de duda, de mentira y de error en el corazón de un niño, ¿verdad? Y lo peor de todo es que eso ocurra a través de un familiar o de alguien cercano. Pero nada, vamos a ver este tráiler y luego vamos a ver un pedacito, que nos dé el tiempo, del testimonio de esta persona, ¿ok? Así que veamos este tráiler y luego vemos el testimonio. Veamos rapidito.
I woke up from the operation, and here I got these big boobs and the vagina and the whole thing, tubes hanging out here and there, and it's like, wow, what have I done?
I despised my own body and I felt trapped. I remembered back to when I was 9 and I made that decision that as soon as I had enough money and I was old enough, I would change my name to David, get a sex change, and live happily ever after.
If you want a transsexual or somebody with breasts or you want to get freaky, you go to that place.
I went ahead and had the gender reassignment surgery. I was promptly terminated from the corporation. I didn't even get to go back on property. They cleaned my desk out, handed it to me, and said goodbye.
They go through the surgery, they go through the torturous medical procedure of contorting their body to conform to their psychological distortion.
I took the hormones. Of course, right away, I started filling out muscularly because my goal was not to ever be known as a woman. My goal was to only be known as a man.
I was saying to God, I know the way you made me. I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to remake myself in the image I have in my mind. I was saying I was God. I was being equal with God here.
You'll never be a woman. You can say you are, you can think you are, but you can't be because God made you a man.
I went to this pastor's conference in full drag, makeup and everything, and it was last night I remember that I gave my life to Christ.
I'm gonna get this operation done, call me Stephen. And you know, my pastor just took me to the side and he said, we don't agree with what you're doing, but we love you and we want you to know that you're welcome here.
There is hope, and that hope for the transgender person is the same as it is for any other human being. That hope is that sin and its consequences have been decisively overcome by Jesus Christ.
Anybody that seeks to keep their life for themselves will lose their life. But any man who would willingly lay down his life for my sake will find true life.
God doesn't just sweep life away. Instead, he devises ways to bring us back to him when we've gone astray. That's love. That is love.
Ese es el documental, se llama Transform, Finding Peace with Your God-Given Gender. ¿Ok? Ese es el documental, se llama Transform, Finding Peace with Your God-Given Gender. Transformados, encontrando paz con el género que Dios me dio, con el sexo que Dios me dio, me diseñó desde mi nacimiento. El documental está poderoso, mi gente. Les recomiendo que lo vean. Les recomiendo que puedan, ¿verdad? Sentarse, verlo con calma, verlo con detenimiento, porque verdaderamente es increíble. El documental está increíble y le va a ayudar mucho a usted a entender muchas de las cosas que obviamente están pasando todas estas personas que, como quien se dice, transicionan, ¿no? Yo les voy a poner el enlace aquí ahora rapidito para que usted lo pueda tener. Déjeme pedirle por aquí para poder ponerle el enlace. Les voy a poner el enlace. Ahí está el enlace. Y luego ahí usted puede seguir viendo el resto del documental. Pero yo le quiero poner un pedazo de unos cuantos minutos del mismo en este momento, ¿verdad? Quiero que lo puedan ver, que lo puedan escuchar. Y usted vea el testimonio de esta persona. Y escuche bien, preste atención a lo que esta persona dice de cómo fue que esa semilla de mentira y de distorsión y esa semilla satánica fue sembrada en el corazón de esta persona cuando era niño. Ya la persona es una persona adulta, ¿ok? Escuche esto, escúchelo y nada, quiero que comente y quiero que reaccione a esto, ¿ok? Escuchemos, veamos.
Get ready to hear an amazing testimony of God's grace and the power of salvation.
When it all started for me, I was about 4 years old. And my grandmother was, for whatever reason, enjoyed cross-dressing me. And by the time I was 5...
Oiga esto. Él dice que todo empezó cuando él tenía 4 años. Lo cuidaba su abuela. Y que su abuela le encantaba vestirlo. Él era varón, vestirlo de niña. Y para la edad que él tenía 5 años, ella le ponía vestiditos de niña. Escuche esto. Vea.
She had made me a purple chiffon full-length dress. And so when Grandpa was gone and my parents dropped me off at her house to be babysat, usually a couple of times a month, that was the routine. Grandma would dress me up as a little girl, and she just would get excited about me being a little girl. She liked me better as a little girl. She really reinforced that female appearance of mine, and with that seed planted in me. And I must say, I didn't know that something was actually wrong because I had no basis to look at the other side of it. I just knew that, you know, when I was home, that didn't happen. My parents weren't like that, but my grandma told me to keep it a secret. As a little...
Wow, oiga eso. La abuela lo vestía de niña, lo celebraba, le gustaba verlo vestido de niña. Y mire lo que él dice, esa semilla se sembró en mí. En mi casa eso no sucedía porque mis padres no me hacían eso, pero en casa de mi abuela sí, y mi abuela me dijo, manténlo en secreto, no se lo digas a nadie. Escuche esto, mire lo importante, usted tener una comunicación importante, clara, profunda, abierta, constante, ganándose el corazón de sus niños y de sus hijos. Sigamos escuchando.
Little child of 4 or 5 years old, you don't know that a secret means there's something probably not quite right. And it went on for a couple of years, probably 2.5 years. And then I became so accustomed to cross-dressing and being appreciated and fawned over because she kept telling me how good I looked. I never got that when I was a boy from her. It was only when I was a girl. So, you know, I'm sure that I enjoyed getting the affirmation. And so after 2 years, I decided to take the dress home. But I put it in a sack, and because it was a secret, I didn't tell Grandma I was taking the dress, and I didn't tell my parents that I was bringing a dress home, but I brought it home and hid it in the bottom of my dresser drawer. And knowing that when I had the opportunity and the house was clear, then I could put that dress on and maybe get those same feelings back that Grandma would make me feeling good about who I was. And there was nothing going wrong in the home. I couldn't see anything, or there was nothing driving it. It's just that the seed had gotten planted and was watered by my grandmother about my identity, and that began this.
Oiga eso, la semilla, él dice, en mi casa no había ningún problema, mi casa era un hogar bueno, un hogar sano. Él dice, pero la semilla que sembró mi abuela en mi corazón, y que mi abuela era la que regaba esa semilla, o sea, le daba riego a esa semilla para que siguiera creciendo, ¿ok? Imagínense, 5 años, no sabía lo que era lo bueno de lo malo, no entendía muchas cosas. Sigamos escuchando.
Two-sided view of who I was, because when I was at home, I was just a ruffian little boy with tore up blue jeans and scuffed up tennis shoes, and I was a rough little kid playing in the dirt. But still inside here, I had that image. I heard those words. I had those. I wanted that same kind of affirmation and feeling from when I was a boy, from everybody, like I was getting from Grandma when I was a little girl, but I wasn't getting that. So I guess then I began that time period where I took the dress home so I could at least feel the feelings myself that I would get when I put them on. Even though I didn't have Grandma speaking to me, I could hear her voice, I think, speaking to me. So it was very powerful. And it's very transformative in terms of how you begin to see who you are, but it's also very confusing.
Wow.
So it was funny because I had that dress hidden in the bottom of my dresser drawer. We were having dinner one night, table was clear. Mom came out, sat across from me. Dad was sitting across from me. Brother was down the road. And Mom says, "So what's with the dress that you have in the drawer?" And boy, I started breaking out in a sweat. And I said, "Well, Grandma made it for me." Well, you could have set off an atom bomb at that point, you know. And so then this big explanation about what had happened. And then my dad, you could almost see him begin to glow like a Roman candle, because he was a part-time police officer, an industrial goods salesman, not exactly a wimpy guy. He was a judo expert and all that stuff. So he was, to say the least, not too excited about what he just heard. So then I began to tell them how long this had gone on. Well, then it blew up. And so from that point on, I wasn't allowed to go to Grandma's unless both my mom and my dad were with me, and my brother. We always went as a unit. So that going over there to be babysat by her ended. And of course, then Grandma felt she was very angry with me because I outed what was supposed to be a secret.
Wow.
And so that secret got out. And then I felt responsible for everything going wrong between my parents, my grandmother, and me. So now you see the dynamic. This is where I felt things were not going right, because I could see their reaction to me having this purple dress. Well, the purple dress disappeared and I never saw it again. But here's the thing that was most interesting, is that purple dress sort of took on a life of its own as an image within my thinking. So at night, you know, when I was laying in bed, all these things went through my head, what Grandma had been doing, Grandma's voice, I could hear her talking to me about it.
Mire. Oh, wow, señor. Qué triste esto. Mire cómo este caballero, ya anciano, adulto, cuenta esta historia y cómo él está diciendo cómo él luchaba con esos pensamientos de esa semilla que su abuela sembró y regó, ¿verdad? Cómo un familiar, como una abuela, papá o mamá, pueden sembrar semejante pensamiento vil, diabólico. Solamente una persona con un corazón que obviamente no tiene a Cristo, un corazón que no tiene la gracia de Dios, puede hacer eso. Un corazón controlado completamente por el enemigo de las almas puede hacer algo así para arruinarle la vida a un niño de 5 o 6 años. Esto es terrible, ¿verdad? Terrible. Vamos a terminar de escuchar lo que él dice y luego entonces reaccionamos un poquito más.
The explosion with my mom and dad and the difficulty it caused between them and the difficulty it was causing between my mom and her mom and my dad and Grandma. So it was a very wild dynamic that a kid at this time, might have been 7 years old, didn't quite understand.
Exacto. Bueno, mi gente, eso usted lo puede encontrar en ese documental que yo le acabo de enviar por el chat para que usted lo vea con calma. Pero ¿qué usted piensa de esto? ¿Qué usted piensa de esto? Fuerte, ¿verdad? Por eso es que tenemos que estar alertas, tenemos que estar al pendiente, tenemos que estar en todo momento, mi gente, pendiente de nuestros hijos, pendiente de todo lo relacionado a nuestros hijos. No permitir que esas semillas, mire, el enemigo siembra semillas de perversión, semillas de engaño y de mentira en la mente y en el corazón de muchos adolescentes y de muchos niños. Y nuestro trabajo como papá, como padres saludables, padres que amamos al Señor, padres que hemos tenido un encuentro genuino con Cristo y padres que estamos metidos en la Escritura, en la palabra de Dios, en la Biblia. Nuestra responsabilidad es educar a nuestros niños, a nuestros hijos, encaminarlos en el camino del Señor, ganarnos su corazón para que ellos puedan hablarnos todas esas cosas y nos puedan decir todas esas mentiras que quizás escuchan aún de algún familiar que le pueda decir para evitar que pase lo que le pasó a este caballero. ¿Ok? Es muy triste todo esto, ¿verdad? Que acabamos de ver ahí. Le recomiendo que vea, ¿verdad? Ya llegamos al final, tristemente, de nuestro programa. Así que, como ya llegamos al final de nuestro programa, no queda más que decirles nos vemos mañana a la misma hora, mi gente, con otro temazo que vamos a estar compartiendo con ustedes. Pero comparta este video, por favor, compártalo con toda la gente que pueda y déjele saber a todo el mundo. Pastor Julio Vientos hoy en las noticias de la luz de la palabra trajo este tema, necesitas escucharlo. Si la persona tiene hijos, si tiene nietos, comparta este video con ellos para que lo vean, ¿ok? Y advertirles de la importancia de criar a nuestros hijos en el temor del Señor, ¿ok? Y en un ambiente no perfecto, pero un ambiente de salud emocional y espiritual en nuestro hogar y en nuestra familia. Así que, gente linda, Dios les bendiga. Gracias por el tiempo que sacaron por esta hora. Siempre es un honor yo poder estar con ustedes aquí compartiendo, poder traerles el tema o los temas que estemos hablando. Siempre es un honor para mí. Así que nos vemos mañana, Dios mediante, a las 12 del mediodía por las noticias de la luz de la palabra aquí en Generación News. ¿Ok? Dios les bendiga, Dios les guarde y bendiciones a todos.